So I did a video a while ago looking at the Denver area Airbnb VRBO short-term rental laws for if you are the owner of a home and you want to rent it out on a short-term basis, where and how you're allowed to do that. That video maybe didn't become the most popular video on my channel, but it definitely sparked the most conversations. I get probably 1 to 2 calls a week just from that video alone of people wondering what they need to do to be able to either get their place ready to put on the short-term rental market or buy a place that they can then rent out on a short-term basis. Since there's been so many questions and since a lot of time has passed since I did that first video, I wanted to record a follow-up to update you on some of the new regulations and also provide some more context. You can use this as the most up-to-date resource, at least at the time it was recorded, because these things are always changing, but we are going to do our best. So first of all, if you are someone looking to purchase an investment property to use as a short-term rental, I would love to talk to you. I am a licensed real estate agent in the Denver metro area, and I have done this process many times, so I've kind of become a bit of a de facto expert just on what you can do, what you can't do, and where you can and can't do it. There's no good centralized depository for this information. Maybe at some point there will be. I hope there will be. But for now, it's people like me who have to learn through just constantly educating themselves and through doing it as part of my job. So I've done that, and I would love to see if I could be a resource for you. If you didn't watch the first video, probably go back and watch that first. I'll put the link below in the description because I'm not gonna go repeat everything there. I just wanna build on what we already talked about there. But you will recognize in that video and in this one, Denver and the greater Denver area does actually have a lot of restrictions on what you can do in terms of renting your place out on a short-term basis, 30 days or less. Now that may seem like a detriment, but in some ways it's actually a positive. Because of all these restrictions, that has created the supply of short-term rentals and made it artificially small. So if you are someone who can get into a short-term rental, who is gonna be savvy and go in the right places, well, you are gonna have a lot of opportunity to actually make a lot of money because you don't have as much competition. Just something to keep in mind. Now, the first consideration you will want to think about. I didn't put this in the first video and I really should have, but before county or city regulations or anything like that, the one thing you want to watch out for is an HOA. When it comes to short-term rentals, homeowners associations are the devil. Now, I have nothing against HOAs personally, but when it comes to short-term rentals, here's the problem. They're just almost definitely not gonna let you do it. Not all of them. There are some fringe HOAs out there who are like the cool mom who say you do whatever you want, but the vast majority of homeowners associations, I'm talking 95+%, are going to explicitly disallow short-term rentals. So good rule of thumb, if you're looking at a property, can I rent it out as an STR? Does it have an HOA? Yes, probably not. For example, the city of Centennial in the South Denver metro does allow short-term rentals in your non-primary residence, which is great. A lot of Centennial, though, is gonna have an HOA. So I like to keep Centennial in the searches if someone is interested in buying there, but we have to be really careful about looking for places without an association. And continuing to zoom out just as another quick recap about what we're talking about, really that's the big thing, is the primary residence rule. You'll know, if you've been following this, in the city of Denver, it has to be your primary residence to rent it out as a short-term rental, so it doesn't allow you to buy an investment property and put it on Airbnb. And many cities and counties in the surrounding areas have followed suit. But there are still some areas that do allow it under your non-primary. We're gonna go over those now. So, as an update from video 1, we talked about Wheat Ridge. Wheat Ridge does allow it on a non-primary. It breaks it down by districts. There's 4 different districts, and they allocate a certain number of licenses per district. At the time of this recording, which is the end of 2022, basically start in 2023, there are only licenses left in District 3, and it's something like, last time I checked, 20 licenses. So right off the top, if you're interested in getting into Airbnb investing and you want something in one of the few places in the Denver metro that will allow it, Wheat Ridge is a great opportunity. It's a good location. People love living there. It's close to the mountains, blah, 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 blah. they are almost out of licenses. So I urge you, if that is the case, to act quickly, because once they're gone, it goes to a wait list. And you can still get one, but that means someone has to relinquish one for someone on the wait list to get one of those licenses. So basically, if you're thinking about doing this at all, and if you're like, where should I go, where should I start? Look at Wheat Ridge first. I want you to be able to get one of those licenses before they're gone. Second one we talked about in the first video, Arvada, Wheat Ridge's neighbor-ish. Arvada still does allow it on non-primaries. It can only be up to 2/3 of the year though, so 66.66 repeating percent of the time, something like that. That's the deal with Arvada. That's the trade-off. And a lot of people say, okay, well, I want to be able to rent it out more than that. I get it. If it was me, I would too. There's a couple different ways around that. Number one, we know that even if you're trying to rent it out a maximum amount of the time, there's going to be some natural vacancy worked in there. If you run the numbers, which is very important when you're an investor, and we'll get to that later, but if you run the numbers and this works with a vacancy rate of around 33%, that can still work, and that can be a very profitable business because of how profitable short-term rentals are. The other thing I've seen people do in Arvada is use it as a short-term rental up to that 2/3 of the year, and then do a medium rental to bridge the gap. You're still probably not going to get to 100% of the time, but there is a market for, especially if it's a furnished property, which short-term rentals in general are, those 3-month leases for travel nurses are a big one, or just other people who are working remotely who want to go live in a different place and live there for longer than 2 weeks, but not a full year. So you can use a combination of those two strategies, and keep in mind, if it's a lease that's over 30 days, it's not a short-term rental. So you are not governed by these short-term rental laws. So that's the thing with Arvada. Now, moving on, I want to hit the rest of the Denver metro. Where else is it allowed? Well, Northglenn, up on the north side of town, up by Thornton, Northglenn does allow short-term rentals. Is it the most desirable part of town? No. Is it the most enticing to out-of-towners? No, but there's still plenty of opportunity there. And Northglenn's one of the few places that doesn't really have a restriction. You still have to get licensed. You need a license everywhere, but they're not going to tell you too much about what to do and how to do it. So it's worth looking at Northglenn. A big one is Westminster. Westminster suburb on the northwest side of town, kind of between Denver and Boulder. Westminster, last time I shot the video, I was talking about Westminster, and I said they are currently deciding what they're going to do about short-term rental laws. They don't have anything, but they're putting together a plan and they're currently deciding. Well, they are still deciding. They have met a few times, they have had some town halls, the city hall has gotten together and talked about it, they put it out to the public for comment. They're still working on it. They're having focus groups that you can go sit in on and give your opinion if you want. The information's on their website. Pizza is provided. I am not making this up. So they're still working on it. They did release a draft of their proposed measures, and so it's just a draft, it's not a final thing, so it's hard to put too much stock in that. But in the draft, there is no language about a primary residence rule, which for investors would be a good thing. Some people will say, well, Westminster doesn't currently have any rules about it. Why don't I just go buy a place right there, right now? Well, you can, but it's not my favorite strategy, because many times when someone already is operating a short-term rental in a place where there are no rules, when the rules get put in, they are then grandfathered in. Okay, they're saying you're already doing it, you keep doing it, you gotta get licensed, but we're gonna give you one, that's fine. Not all the time. So we don't know what's gonna happen. I prefer to invest in a known commodity where they already have the rules set up than something where I don't know what they're gonna do. They could just come out and say no short-term rentals whatsoever and everybody stop. And now you can't do it anymore, and this is why you bought the property. So it's all up to your personal level of risk. And I mentioned before about making the numbers work. If you're looking at this from an investment standpoint, it's really great to invest in a service like Airdna. There's a couple of them. Airdna is the big one, and what this does is it runs all the numbers, it pulls all the data from the Airbnbs in the surrounding area that are currently operating, and really gives you a good idea of how profitable it can be, what your expenses will be like, and those types of things. So in addition to working with with a realtor who can navigate the laws and figure out how to get you the place that you want, investing in a service like that will make you very comfortable in the numbers is a great idea. As far as cities in the Denver metro, that's really kind of it. Littleton, for example, allows it on non-primaries, but they're only allowing renewals at this point because they've had so many. There's a lot of other things like that where there'll be a moratorium, or they're not giving out any more licenses, or there's a wait list or something like that where, hey, it's possible, but if you're an investor and looking to cash flow this thing, I don't want to be on a wait list. Who knows how long that'll take? So I want to talk now about who allows you to do what. Is it the city? Is it the county? Is it the federal government? It's not the federal government. It's the city and the county, some combination thereof. But who trumps? Who supersedes? Well, it depends where the property is located. For example, if you're in Golden, a city that does not allow non-primary residents Airbnbs, if you're in the city limits, then the city itself will apply. So those rules will apply. You can't do it. But if you are in unincorporated Golden, like you have a Golden address, but you're outside the city limits, generally then it goes to the county. So if it's a Golden address in Jefferson County or Boulder County or Clear Creek County or something like that, then those county rules would apply. If the city doesn't have any short-term rental laws, but the county does, well then the city says, we don't care, then it goes to Big Brother at the county, and then if they care, those rules still apply. So first option is city, if they don't have any rules, or if it's not actually in the city, technically within city limits, then it goes to the county. I point that out because one of them in the Denver area, Adams County, a very, very big county, and there's a lot of cities in there that will actually control, but there's some areas of Adams County that are unincorporated Adams County. They're not within any other city limits, and Adams County doesn't have rules against short-term rentals. So if you find something in unincorporated Adams County that will work for what you want, you are able to rent that out on a short-term basis. And the farther away from town you get, the more counties really start to rule rather than cities, just because the cities don't have as many rules around it. So when people come to me and say, Sam, I'm looking to purchase an investment property, I want to put it on Airbnb, where should I go? The first ones I generally mention are Arvada and Wheat Ridge because of how desirable they are, and just the fact that they allow you to do it. Their laws are pretty good. But again, Wheat Ridge licenses, go get yours now. And then the second place I go is the Foothills. Jefferson County, Park County, Clear Creek County, kind of. But those areas, Evergreen, Conifer, all the way to Pine, Bailey, and then north to kind of Black Hawk-ish area. Black Hawk doesn't explicitly allow it, but some other areas like that, there's a lot of opportunity there. I mentioned in video 1, Jefferson County, which is one of the most desirable foothills counties, does allow short-term rentals as long as it's on an acre or more, and then a couple other small details that most properties will abide by. That is still the case. Jefferson County is still a great place to get an investment property. Black Hawk, I mentioned. Black Hawk, the city of does not allow non-primaries, but the city of Black Hawk is actually pretty small, and a lot of Black Hawk addresses are going to be in greater Black Hawk. Unincorporated Black Hawk, not actually the city of Black Hawk, so those would not apply. Instead, the Gilpin County laws would apply. And Gilpin County does have a tiered structure, so the tiers are, non-primary residents, primary residents, live in the county, don't live in the county, blah, 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 blah. Bottom line is, for a non-primary, they do allow short-term rentals in one of the tiers. There's a cap on it, and there's some rules that you kind of gotta jump through more hoops if it's not your primary. But they do have those licenses available in that tier currently. Clear Creek County I mentioned, I think I talked about it in the first video. That's another one of those foothills counties that does allow it. They still do allow it on non-primaries, but they did put a cap on it, and they have reached that cap. So in Clear Creek County right now, if it's a non-primary, you are on a wait list. It's a dirty word. Going out more and more, Estes Park, which is a great Colorado mountain town, did allow it. They just recently, last few months, put a moratorium on the short-term rental licenses. So no one knows how long that'll last. No one knows what it looks like after that, but moratorium, not a great word either. I mentioned in video 1, but I want to bring it up again. Summit County, Eagle County, those I-70 corridor ski areas, Breckenridge, Keystone, Vail, blah, 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 blah. It's a bad idea, just avoid it. I'm sorry, there's so many regulations, they kind of allow it, but they generally don't. It depends where it is, but they're gonna tax the crap out of you. Your take home is gonna be well less than 50% of your revenue, and HOAs. There's HOAs everywhere. So in the few places where you can kind of do it, there's probably gonna be an HOA. So sorry to kill the dream. I know, get the ski condo, rent it out, use it when I want, make a lot of money. It's just really hard right now. A lot of these laws may be revisited because some of these places are gonna realize, and have already realized, they're making it too hard on people. So some things will change in the future, and sometimes for the better. We don't know when that's gonna happen, but that's the point. It's a whole fluid situation. It's all so new. The technology always goes way faster than the law, and then the law has to try to catch up. And that's what's happening now, and things will continue to adjust. But for now, no. The farther you go out, hours and hours from Denver, there are plenty of mountain towns that will allow it. One of my favorites is Glenwood Springs. Glenwood Springs, great town, got a lot to offer. It does allow short-term rentals, but you have to be outside of the buffer zone of another short-term rental. So you can't be too close to another short-term rental. However, Glenwood Springs does have a very, very helpful map that's updated often on their website about where those buffer zones are. So you can reference that at your leisure. Glenwood Springs, it's worth a try. I rambled forever, I talked too long, sorry, but there's so much information, it's hard to get it all out. So this is the update. Guys, the point is, if this is something you want to do, you do need to be working in close tandem with a real estate professional that knows this stuff. So again, I would love you to reach out. My number's below, my email's below, however you want to talk, let's talk. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Love you guys.